Hi, this is Mark from Snooker Crazy. A bit of a strange angle for this video. We've got the fluorescent lights are pulsing a little bit, so I'm probably going to do this one in a chair. This video is about how I burnish tips. I've had lots of questions on how I actually do it. There's lots of ways to do it, but we're going to show you my method and maybe a couple of others. As I say, the angle's a little bit strange, so you'll have to bear with it, and I'll be going backwards and forwards in the chair. A few different things come to light that people use more often than not. There's a micromesh paper, which what people do normally is wrap that around the ferrule and the tip and just pull it like that, and just keep pulling it and turning it. Generally you put a little bit of spit round there, just round the edge, and just keep pulling it down. Try not to go on the shaft if you can, 'cause sometimes it make it a bit dirty. And just keep pulling it and turning it until it eventually, with the heat and a little bit of spit round there, the friction will actually make it go shiny. Now that's quite a common one with guys that I know. The only thing I don't like about it is the fact that this is very floppy, so it's only the side wall of the tip that you actually want to burnish and make go hard to keep its shape. But if you don't get the right length of this, it can actually just wrap over the top edge of the tip, which is the bit a lot of the time it's in contact with the ball, so you end up burnishing rather than the sidewall. You get the sidewall and the first bit of the tip. I've seen that quite often, which makes that go pretty hard, pretty shiny, and not as good to grip the chalk. So although I used to do a bit of that, you have to be careful. It's not really my preferred method nowadays, but it will work. But as again, it's the top of the tip that I think becomes the problem. See a lot of these used. Now basically you have a large hole at one end, small hole at the other, and it's tapered. And with that you just slot it over and find the bit of the tip. You can just feed it in there, and then you basically just roll it backwards and forwards, again with a bit of spit normally, and again that will just push the two surfaces hard together, and the friction will then create that hardness, if you like, that shine. I've always found these, might be just me I think, a little bit difficult, and again sometimes they can move the top of the tip in if you don't do it sort of really well. It's not my favourite, that one, I must admit, although they're quite commonplace. Another way of doing it, which the old ones I think were better, was the old notes. Again, you used to wrap that around the tip and the ferrule, and again put it on your, people generally would just be twisting it, but the easiest thing is to get it on your knees, your thighs, and roll it backwards and forwards. So we'll do one in a minute. And again with a bit of spit, that would get that shiny. As regards micromesh, most of these will do. I mean, I actually use a 6000 when I used to do it. For some reason I preferred that, but even something like that, an 800 MX, it's pretty good. My preferred method, as it has been for quite a time now, are leathers. Quite a few questions on these. There's two sides to leather. Won't go too much into leather itself, just don't really be that deep. You've got a shiny side, basically, and the flesh side, the hairy side. Lots of guys use the hairy side and wet it. Basically, making the tip walls hard and that is a friction, so I always use the complete opposite side. And I've checked this with a few people, they do as well, so I'll always use that side. Here's a couple that, as you can see, that I've used in the past, and I quite like them when they get a little bit older. Now the reason I like these so much is, as long as you get a thick one, a lot of them are quite thin nowadays, and again they tend to want to move over, and your fingers being a little bit stronger than the thickness of leather can move it over the top of the tip. So personally, I make these myself, I've done for years, I just wrap the thick bit all the way around the ferrule, and because it's reasonably thick, it'll actually hold its shape, so it's vertical. So some of the thinner ones out there that are just over a millimetre, they actually curve over, as I said. But they won't do that, as you can see. So they're a bit more awkward to use, but you get a far better result. And they do wear down over time, as you can see. You know, with this one, it's quite, see it sort of spring back where it's quite a hard leather, but it's that friction we're trying to get. So what I'll do is I'll see this tip. Let's have a look. It's not touched at all, that one. So I've just pulled this cue out of the rack, so hopefully the tip's reasonable. It should be. And I will wet the top surface. Personally, I like to put a little bit around it. And then what I'm going to do is just rub this backwards and forwards along my thighs. Don't have to do it too much. I know people do it for hours, cue after cue, but I will wrap that round so it goes just over the ferrule. I don't want it touching the shaft if I can. And you can see it will probably, there you go, it holds it vertical because it's thick enough, this leather. And I'm just going to push it backwards and forwards. Not a lot of space here, but let's see how we go. I'm keeping an eye just to make sure it's on the tip. Then I'll move it along a bit, so I'll do the other side of the tip. And you'll be able to feel it in your hands. And when the water, should we say, starts to disappear, you'll feel the friction and you'll start to feel a little squeak. The squeak, if you like, is where it's now starting to get that added bit of heat. So I haven't done this much. Just twisting it again, make sure I'm getting the other side of the tip, try not to dent the cue. You can hear it, I don't know if you can hear it on there, but it's starting to squeak a little bit. And now, if you can see that, not the best of pictures, but it's just starting to get shiny. Now, if I feel that with my finger, that's already, with my nail, pretty hard. Put a little bit more on, not much. About see that going, that's pretty hard now. It actually feels almost metallic. Now that's it. So what you can do if you like is just to carry on doing that till it gets harder and harder, and it will go darker and darker generally, but you'll see more of a glazed feel over it. As I say, if you really want to do it with this one, it is far more difficult. Generally do it on the ferrule if you like. Micromeshes are nice to clean that up and go through the grades, but I would try and keep it off the shaft because it will go a little bit grey around there if you're not too careful. You'll see it start to get shinier. But that's pretty much it. Some people put waxes on the side, sometimes that can soften the tip. I've even seen people put nail varnish on the side, but for me personally, that's hard enough. So as long as you've got a decent leather going around it, then it will start to build up that strength in the side walls and just hold the shape, which is what it's really about. Lots of people get really over enthused about the look of it to make it almost black. Personally, I'm not overly concerned about that. As long as the tip remains the shape it should do and the walls are sound, and then you can shape the top, then that's fine. So that gives you a good idea. I'm sure I'll get a few comments on, oh, I don't do it like that, I do it slightly different or whatever. It's fine, that's enough. And if you want to go overboard to sort of show off how good your tip is, then that's fine as well, but that will do the job. So So these are just a standard type of leather, but they are probably twice as thick as the others. Since we've been doing these, we don't get asked for thinner ones anymore, mainly because they hold their shape. But you get a general idea. So for anyone that wants to burnish the side of their tips, that gives you a good start. So hopefully that helps. See you on the next video.